think the construction stopped? Because, I mean, really, we can't delay this anymore. I've got things to... Oh, hey! Hi! It's me, Wilma Fingerdoo, with the Fingerdoo review of RuPaul's Drag Race UK Season 2, Episode 2. And before we get started, I just want to apologize ahead of time. There's been some construction outside. I live downtown in Toronto, and things echo. This construction could be happening in Etobicoke. Yes, that's a place. So I apologize ahead of time if it interrupts us. I also want to just take a minute to thank this week's Tipperdoos, Eric Zanier, Joe Van Patten, and Eric Kaufman. Thank you all so much for dropping by and tipping me. Not over. If you would like to be a Tipperdoo, all you got to do is click on one of the links below. Also, speaking of supporters of the Fingerdoo review, I want to send a shout out to this week's Redbubble model, April Pemberton Holden. This is a fabulous picture of April lounged out in her salon with Kitty on her lap. She's wearing a Jorge Drink Me t-shirt and letting the craziness of the world pass her by. Good for you, April. You look good, Mama. Thanks for your support. All right, so I guess that's it. Jorge, drink me. What is this? Come on. It's tea. Oh, right. It's tea. I got a lovely gift box over Christmas. We've been drinking some of it, some of the alcohol from Moonshine Distilleries and the Steinhardt fabulous blueberry gin. And one of the things that John Dwyer threw in my gift box was a box of tea. I've never had Lady Grey tea before. It is delicious. This is my new favorite tea. I'm just saying. If you're going to drink tea, drink Lady Grey. Just saying. Okay. Unless it's still Steinhardt Blueberry Gin. Thank you, Jorge. You could have warned me. It's a lot of gin. Okay, so let's get to it. Well, we started this episode off by saying goodbye to Joe Black. Who else is gobsmacked? I have to say, it was sobering to see how many of the remaining queens were stunned by her elimination this early in the race. But on the upside, she released a cover of Relax on YouTube, so she lives on. I'm relaxed now. Something else that lives on is Bimini's backside, which looks a hell of a lot better without all that tape up it, I'm just saying. Did anyone else get an Elton John's illegitimate bastard brother Gus when Ginny said, rim job? I threw up a little. Of course, everyone congratulated Estina, who surprised me by being humble about it all. Well, until they cut to her in the confessional saying that she deserved it. There she is! Sister was on the verge of purging all over her pink PJs. She was so scared when she landed in the bottom three. And there was Larry with her fast mouth, quick as you like, lamenting landing in the top three. And that was funny. Oh, and on a side note, I got a message from Lawrence Chaney on YouTube with her blessing that I can call her Larry. So I'm having it. Bimini asked a loaded question of the safe girls. Who did they think were the tops and bottoms left out on the main stage? Ooh! You could see it, couldn't you? Ahura, the wheels turning, the words arranging. For a minute there, I thought Roddy was going to throw her cat amongst the pigeons. Sounds dirty. But no, Ahura just opened up her yap and said, everyone but Ginny thought Estina was going to be in the bottom for wearing an online discount brand jacket. Well, from what I understand about East Londoners, that is where they buy their jackets. So well done, Estina, seriously. Not that Estina cared what Ahura thought one way or the other, because, as she said, at the end of the day, it's what you read on the resume that counts. Oh, I think I hurt myself. And with a resounding step up your kitties from Estina, well, that's not what she said, the queens de-dragged. Well, all except Ginny, who got into Bimini's footy outfit faster than Bimini got out of it. Seriously, no one else sees Elton John's illegitimate bastard brother Gus there? Or is she giving us the full Bimini? The next day in the workroom, Estina proudly showed off the first Repeater badge of the season. Yes, there were some rumblings still over Joe's early exit, but Larry was happy that she left her some press-on nails. That Joe's a giver. And then it got shady again quite quick as Ginny said it was too bad Joe hadn't left Larry some of her talent. Larry, like a flash, said she left you new material and pointed to the fabric wall. To which Ginny hit back, it'll save you stealing mine. And then they laughed. Needless to say, as a proud Scotsman, Larry had a calm and thought-out comment regarding that. The did. To break the tension, the queens read Tia and her basic looks, to which she promised that she got her 3 worst looks out of the way early. I don't know about you, but I wouldn't have packed a worse look in the first place. I mean, no offense, her wardrobe's still better than mine, but then I'm not on Drag Race, am I? The bigger issue for Tia was what Ahura was thinking because, well, she couldn't tell, and she wasn't sure if that was because Ahura's a bitch or her face doesn't move. Personally, the question on my mind is, why are Sister and Ellie wearing elf ears? But before these gripping questions could be answered, there was Rue's video message with a lot of 4-legged references, which had all the girls going, huh? But they didn't wonder for long because there was Rue with this week's mini challenge and Bass, the Brit crew. Have to say I'm glad there was only one Brit crew this week because 2 of them would have killed me. Seriously. This week's timely themed mini challenge was all about voting in the Drag Race cabinet. The queens all had to vote for who they thought was the shadiest queen, who was the trade of the season, who was the cockiest queen, which kind of sounds like it was also the trade of the season, but it wasn't, and finally, who was the most basic. Well, I already know who I'm voting for. And so, it seems, did the queens. Tia was voting for everyone who said her wigs were thirsty. So everyone. I know I said it. Clearly there is something going on between Tace and Ahura, or there was, because apparently Ahura knows Tace's trade firsthand. Seriously, Ahura's getting laid wearing that top. And the winners of the first ever Drag Race cabinet were, as Secretary of Shade, Ahura. Trade Minister was Tace. Of course it was. The leader of the House of Lording It Up, aka the cockiest queen, was Lawrence Chaney. Of course it was. And finally, the title of Baroness Basic went to Tia Coffee. She was thrilled. And then it was time to announce this week's Maxi Challenge. Rats! The Rusical! Live. Yes, not only did the queens have to learn songs and choreography for a whole Rusical, but they were going to have to sing it live. Well, that seemed to shut Larry up, but for the most part, the queens seemed excited, especially Tia, who, as the Baroness of Basic, Rue tasked with assigning all the roles to. Well, that seemed to shut up a few more queens, I'm just saying. For all their worry, I felt that Tia did a good job at assigning the right queens with the right roles, even if it did piss some people off. Cherry Valentine. Although I have to say, I'm still shocked none of these queens have heard of Veronica Green. Seriously. She has an amazing voice, although I don't think she proved it with that impromptu audition, seriously. I do have to say I was impressed with Estina picking the lead, especially after no one seemed interested. Nothing proves you have it better than taking the lead. Well, unless you suck. There was a kind of kerfuffle over the role of Evita between Cherry and Veronica, and I have to say, I didn't believe Cherry could do it. Like Estina, Veronica confidently and vehemently fought for that role. So, Tia gave it to her. I guess Cherry wishes she begged for it now. Thing. Tia also noticed that Lawrence Chaney had been uncharacteristically quiet since Rue announced the Maxi Challenge. I think all the queens were a little shocked to hear Larry admit that this challenge was a little outside her comfort zone. I know I was. Bimini made a call for the role of Depravity because it wasn't a big singing role. Way to know your strengths, Bim. Is anyone else loving the Richard O'Brien as riffraff realness that Bimini's serving? Just me? Ahura got dysentery, which she didn't have a say in and wasn't happy about either. I love that the producer asked if she knew what dysentery was. There's confidence in the youth of tomorrow, I'm just saying. Ellie made a move for scat or scabies, seeing as no one else seemed to want them. Doesn't sound right. Anyway, Ellie sold herself hard for one of those parts, saying she could sing, dance, dip. I love that Tia asked to see her dip, and well, then Ellie did. With a bit of a lead-in, she death dropped to the floor, but I'm with Tace. It was more of a death thud than a death drop, poor thing. The point is she survived, and it won her the part. Sister had a good attitude. She wasn't happy with her role in the Rat Pack, but it wasn't a hill she wanted to die on. What a good saying. I'm going to save that for next Christmas. Cherry didn't put up a fight being grouped with Sister in the Rat Pack, but she wasn't pleased about it. While Lawrence, who clearly was so nervous by this whole project that she distracted herself by complaining about them making fun of her accent, was cast as the third rat in the Rat Pack. No offense to Larry, but compared to the rest of the room, she's the only one with an accent, if you ask me. I'm so serious. For the main part, everyone else was happy with the roles Tia gave them, especially Tia, who took the best singing role for herself, even though it had the smallest amount of stage time. Here's basic now. And then it was off to rehearsals with Michelle Visage and her vocal coach, Dane Chalfin. Up first, the Rat Pack. Maybe being first had them all feeling nervous, but I'll bet that's the first time in life that Larry's ever been told to be louder. Bimini totally upstaged co-star Ahura, but then Ahura had an excuse. Of course she did. She said until she's in that costume, she's not feeling it. But because she wasn't feeling it in her fancy pants and turtleneck, Michelle read her for filth. Good for Michelle. Veronica and Estina were next, and in a show of confidence, Michelle asked Ronnie how high she could sing. So, she showed her. Well, if there was ever any doubt about Veronica Green's talent before, that seemed to shut them all down. Finally. Ginny and Tia were next, and first off, I just want to ask, was Ginny high? Not because of what she was wearing, but because of how she was sounding. This is another one with a fantastic singing voice. Not that anyone heard it then, I'm just saying. Tace and Ellie rehearsed next, and it became evident very quickly that accent or not, diction was not Tace's friend, which is not what it says on the bathroom wall. It said what? And then it was off to learn choreography, or more to the point, the queens left the stage so they could re-enter it again, where they were greeted by choreographer Jay Ravel and Kieran, who were going to teach the queens some dance moves and cause Ginny to spring a small leak. For the most part, everyone seemed to do well. Jay didn't seem to be any better at getting Ahura to loosen up. Ginny's memory seemed to be tripping her and Tia's rehearsal up, while her voice did a number on Jay. But it was the Rat Pack who seemed to need the most amount of work, and not just because Larry was having public school PTSD. Cherry Valentine's bitter Brenda routine over the casting wasn't helping. Neither was blaming Sister and Lawrence. I'm so serious. Sister was worried because as a trio, they were only as strong as their weakest link, and clearly, Sister thought she wasn't the worst. Well, it all became a little too much for my Glaswegian Teddy, because Larry reached her breaking point and the tears started flowing. Bless. Never was a gay man more upset at not being able to sing and dance, although some of the queens were happy to see the competition start to crumble. Just saying. But with a round of support from the cast and Jay, Lawrence was able to, well, stop crying at least. The next day, the queens were feeling their musical fantasy as they got ready for the main runway and another elimination. We also got to watch another chapter in the romantic mystery known as Tehora. Their power flirting continued as everyone else got ready. Clearly they've hooked up or are hooking up. I mean, I read that they're roommates or something, so something's obviously going on. I mean, seriously, they both voted each other Train of the Season. I voted for Ellie. Another couple who seemed to be hitting it off was Sister and Cherry. This was a very interesting conversation because Cherry revealed that although she's from Darlington, she actually comes from a traveler background, which I have to admit is new to me. From what I could find online about it, travelers are historically Irish, and although called gypsies, they aren't actually related to them genetically. Irish travelers have been around since the 1600s, but were only legally recognized as an ethnic group by the Irish government in 2017. See, you learn something new every day. Cherry went on to share the difficulties she's had being a traveler and how the rest of society feels about that, plus being gay, plus being a drag queen. It's a lot of closets to come out of, eh? But Cherry seemed able to put on her brave face and carry on, but I suspect it helped having a friend to carry on with. Not like that. And then it was time for the runway. I don't know what Rue was wearing, but I wasn't mad at it. I love it when she shows off her legs. Joining Rue on the judges panel was the adorably coiffed Michelle Visage, the colorfully clothed Alan Carr, and rounding out the judges panel, and not because she's pregnant, television actress and star of such West End productions as Little Shop of Horrors and Funny Girl, Sheridan Smith. Up first, Rats, the Rusical, live. For the most part, the Rusical went well. Ellie and Tace had a few lyric flubs, but rocked out their dance moves. For all Larry's worry, the Rat Pack did okay. My biggest complaint wasn't that they didn't do well, it was that they looked less like rodents and more like a chapter of the Joanne Worley fan club. Just me? Ahura seemed to finally get into character enough to keep up with Bimini, which was nice to see, finally. Ronnie was fabulous as Evita, but then she knew she would be. Ginny's duty stench was slightly frightening, but at least she was in key this time. The only thing that upstaged Tia's Specimen 1 character was the huge ear on her back. I said the huge ear on her back. Oh, never mind. All in all, I thought everyone did a great job, even Estina, who, I kept forgetting, was supposed to be the lead. And then it was time for the runway. Category is, surprise, surprise. Ahura was first. She went from groom to bride in a couple of winks and the squint of an eye. My only complaint for her runway was that the transition wasn't smoother. But it still got a Fingerdoo for me. Lawrence Chaney was another one who had an awkward transition, which is probably how everyone saw her new-new. I didn't see it, but I wasn't looking. Still, it was another Fingerdoo for me. And yes, awkward transition was my drag queen name in high school. Maybe it's because I'm older than dirt, but I gave Ginny's outfit a Fingerdoo as well. I love the retroness of it all, the cheeky same dress reveal, and then the cheeky surprise. See, those lessons from Bimini are paying off. Up next was Cherry Valentine, and my first Fingerdoo of the night. Not that Cherry didn't look beautiful, but I didn't get it. First of all, the crinoline of the outfit was all over the place and was really more of a cover-up than a reveal, and the whole pregnant gender reveal party theme was lost on me. But at least it was confetti. Tia Coffee spiced things up out of the gate with her leather daddy hippie look, which I liked more than her saloon girl number she had on underneath, which, oddly enough, made that wig look even cheaper. How's that possible? Ellie Diamond's trip down the yellow brick road got a Fingerdoo for me. Sure, the costumes weren't the best, but she did have 3, and they were all adorable. I did something similar for the fabulous Misconception. You can see that look here. I gave Estina Mandela a Fingerdoo because as far as I'm concerned, a cloak isn't a reveal. Everyone knows there's something underneath it. Where's the surprise? It seems Estina felt it was under the mask, but she's British. Was anyone surprised her teeth were that bad? I didn't hate Sister Sister's reveal, but how hard is it to hide a harness under a housecoat? Fingerdoo, I'm sorry to say. Ronnie's runway was my favorite. I loved the Stepford wife look, revealing that Terry Mugler Metropolis-inspired deliciousness underneath. 10 Fingerdoos across the board. Seriously. I felt that if Tace had had a different color on as her reveal, this concept would have worked better. But the red on red on red was too much, especially when she started bleeding on everything. Michelle and Alan's faces say it all. Fingerdoo. Poor Bimini's runway was another Fingerdoo for me. The concept of splatter painting a canvas corset was good, but because she was poking the balloons filled with paint with a pin, the balloons burst outward and left very little of any paint on the corset itself. She might have had that effect work better if she'd had tacks built into the corset and had swung the balloons back and forth, but she didn't ask me. And then it was time for the judges' critiques. Ahura, Ginny Lemon, Estina Mandela, Sister Sister, and Bimini Bon Boulash were all safe. For the most part, the judges liked Lawrence's ability to carry on through the Rusical despite her obvious difficulties. Alan wasn't impressed by Larry's surprise reveal until she saw some of the other queens, and then, well, she was right impressed. Cherry got read a little harder for her difficulties during the Rusical, and Alan wasn't surprised by her surprise reveal, even though Sheridan was. Michelle loved Tia Coffey's performance in the Rusical and her runway up until she revealed that Angel's Saloon Girl costume. Can I just have a minute to say that Angels is a fabulous costume company that's been around since the 1800s and has supplied costumes for film and theater for generations. Hell, we even used to rent costumes from Angels for the Road to Avonlea show when I worked on it. There, I said it. Michelle thought Ellie's nerves caused her to hesitate during the Rusical, but she still thought she did a good job. And all of the judges were impressed by her 3-part reveal on the runway. Fembot Veronica Green was next, and can I just take a second to say how impressed I am with Ronnie's makeup skills? Seriously, she doesn't even look like she's wearing that much, and yet her transformation is impressive. Oh, there, I feel better getting that off my chest, I'm just saying. Michelle couldn't compliment Veronica enough. The subtleties of her performance, her voice, her fabulous reveal on the runway. But I'm sure having RuPaul acknowledge that she's here to compete in front of the other queens was the bigger compliment for Ronnie. Seriously. Taste didn't fare well with the judges, eh? Her performance wasn't great, and her runway was disappointing. Hell, even RuPaul said her costume looked cheap, and she was wearing that. Seriously, is that vinyl supposed to hang down so you see all that stitching? Back in the Untucked Lounge, the safe queens caught their breath over a much-needed cocktail. Ginny Lemon voiced what they were all thinking. Drag Race is much harder than they thought it would be. And let me tell you why. These queens are all stars at what they do. It's what got them to Drag Race in the first place, but now they're jumping through hoops and performing in ways that for some of them are a first, and it's chipping away at their confidence. Seriously. Thank God the rest of the queens arrived before things could get too maudlin. Larry shared that her personality was what seemed to pull her through the challenge, much to Sister's chagrin. Somebody is obviously sick and tired of Lawrence Chaney's gift of the gab. And why wouldn't she be? You can't buy that. But still, for a safe queen, she seems to have a lot more to say about performing next to Larry than Cherry did. And Cherry was obviously in the bottom. Speaking of the bottom, Taste was worried about her critique because she obviously didn't expect it. Unlike Tia, who saw that red menace coming. Stop it. Which brings us to Cherry Valentine. No one was more disappointed in Cherry's negative critique than me. She was one of my picks for top 4, I'm just saying. Not to say that Cherry wasn't disappointed too. She seemed surprised by her critique, but Ellie wasn't. She read that bus driver's wig she had on for all it was worth, which I expect would be about 12 pounds on Amazon. I'm glad that Bimini apologized, kind of, to Veronica for doubting her abilities. It was clear to everyone that she was going to be this week's winner. And I have to say that it broke my heart when Ronnie said she'd been overlooked her whole career. Well, something tells me that that's all about to change now. Here's to you, Miss Veronica Green. Seriously. Ginny. Ooh, Ginny Lemon. Fancy a slice? Tia was happy to have wowed the judges with her performance, but you could see that having her wig and outfits called basic again was starting to wear on her. Watch. When this is all said and done, she's going to launch a range of affordable wigs and costumes called basic. Mark my words. Back on the main stage, it was announced, surprise, surprise, that Veronica Green was this week's winner. Sadly, it was Cherry Valentine and Taste that landed in the bottom. And no offense, but I can't think of a more difficult song to lip sync for your life to than Memories from Cats. There was nowhere to hide during this lip sync. There was no dancing. There were no shablams, just pure emotional interpretation and flawless lip syncing, which sadly for Cherry, Taste seemed to have a better handle on. And even though this was an emotional performance for everyone to watch, it was no surprise to me that Taste, Shantae, and Cherry Valentine became the second queen of Drag Race Season 2 to sashay away. Well, what do you think? Was Cherry robbed? Would she have done a better job if she'd fought harder for the Evita role? Or is this cast just setting an incredibly high bar to get over? Let me know what you think in the comments below, because you know I do my best to answer everyone. And what about the rest of the cast? Who do you think is next to sashay? Sister and Ginny seem to be letting Larry's bubbling bravado get under their skin. Will they be able to ignore her loudness and crack on, or is this the beginning of their end? And what about Tia? If I were told that another one of my wigs was basic, I'd be going through my dance bag and giving them all a good shake. I'm so serious. And what about Bimini? She went from being in the bottom last week to being safe this week. Is that her star rising? All we can do is tune in to Drag Race UK next week to see how it all plays out. And when you're done, you come on back and you see me so you and I can compare notes. Now, don't forget to like this video if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And until next week, miss me. Mwah, seriously. This is nice, Jorge. Gin in a teacup. I feel like I should be going to church in this hat, Jorge. I'm just saying. Seriously, what could they possibly be building in downtown Toronto? It had better not be another condo building. We're supposed to be socially distanced. How are you supposed to do that when you're living on top of each other? I'm so serious. Watch, the minute I turn this camera off, they'll stop making all that noise. Bastards. Well, at least somebody's got a job.